Hey, Going Deeper friends. It is week 3 of Living According to God's Call. And this week I have asked you to complete a simple assignment. It's called My Calling. And in it, you're really just looking at your everyday relationships and roles and tasks and just putting them down in a document. I encourage you to do it on a computer because you're going to add to it later. And you're just putting that in a document that acknowledges that these are the relationships, the roles, and the tasks that you've been called to by God. Now, this seems like a very simple activity, and it really is, and yet I think it can be profound also because it helps us to recognize that God has called us to live for Him and for His glory in the relationships we're already in and the roles that we're already in, the tasks that we experience in everyday life. The Apostle Paul says this in Romans chapter 12. This is Eugene Peterson's transliteration. He says, "Here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work life, and place it before God as an offering." That's what we've been called to do. Say, God, in these relationships, in these tasks, in these roles, will you teach me how to walk with you and how to surrender my will to your will? Now, one of the things that happens to me when I start putting something down on a piece of paper that involves relationships, roles, tasks, that kind of thing, I can tend to get a little bit overwhelmed, and I think there's no way I can live for God in all these things. And that's exactly the point. Like when we begin to understand calling, God is always calling us to live for something and pursue something and live in such a way that is beyond our own ability. And so we should feel a sense of, oh, I can't do that. I was talking with a friend just last week about this, how sometimes I feel like, okay, God has called me to this thing way out there, but I tap out like right here. And so I begin to think, well, then obviously we're not going over there because my capacity is finished here. And when I think that way, I'm leaving God out of the equation completely. My friend and I, as we were talking about it, we were thinking about it in terms of, like, say you went to lunch with God, and you're looking at the menu, and you see something on the menu, boy, you really feel led or called to order that, but it's like $15, and you only got $5 in your pocket. So you're like, well, I guess I can't order that. And God's like, no, go ahead and order it. And you're like, well, no, I only have $5, and that's $15, so obviously I can't order it. God's like, no, go ahead and order it. No, but God, I only have 5, and that's 15. And the whole time, God is sitting there with this just fat wad of cash in his pocket, and he's planning on picking up lunch. And we're like, well, no, obviously I couldn't order it because I only have $5. And I find that I do that in my life with God. I limit God, and I limit what God has called me to based on my own resources and abilities. And yet, that's putting trust in myself, not putting trust in God. The God who can do exceeding, as Paul says, exceedingly more than we could ever ask or imagine. So as we think about calling, let's not be overwhelmed by putting trust in ourselves. Let's be encouraged by putting our trust in God, a God who can do far more than we've ever asked or imagined. God bless you guys, and I'll catch up with you soon.